Coming up on Theater Talk.
There's a difference in your therapeutic styles, I think.
Totally, that's what I love.
And I find that, how does that take shape? How do you...
I don't know, man.
It's good though, right?
Yeah,
I like that.
Describe the difference.
No, I was going to ask you how you
I
describe. I mean, I have my ideas, but I'm not playing them.
There are certain aspects to our current arrangement that are not acceptable, Marcy. I mean, although our net income per session is slightly higher with CCI than our previous situation, it has come at the cost of extremely time-consuming, redundant paperwork, telephone time on hold, telephone tag, requests for authorization, lost in the mail excuses, verbal authorizations that are given but not backed up in writing, along with authorizations for treatment that are rejected on the most petty grounds, so that our entire endeavor is beginning
I'm sorry, could you clarify what you mean by that?
By what?
Petty.
Could I clarify it? The word you mean.
Well, I know what the word means. I'd like you to clarify your precise use of it in regards to us.
From New York City, this is Theater Talk. I'm Susan Haskins, and I am delighted to be joined by my guest co-host, Tony Award-winning playwright Warren Leight. Warren, we are going to talk about a wonderful new play that is being presented by the new group, Good for Otto, which is written by playwright David Rabe, joining us, produced and directed by Scott Elliott, and it features in a huge ensemble cast Ed Harris and Amy Madigan playing psychiatrists at the center of this whole world that you have created in this epic play, David. Tell us a little bit about what it is you've written.
I live up in Lakeville, Connecticut, and there was a center there, and I did a fundraiser for it many, many years ago. And in the process, got to know the guy who ran it, Richard O'Connor, and also I did a kind of dramatic version of some of the. It's like all the scenes, not all the characters, but a number of the characters, and the title is the same actually. And so that's where it started. So it's a center in Berkshires where people come and go. It's not an inpatient place. It's not any kind of asylum. They just come and go and in need for care.
And you have, as Ed plays the guy you run the center, your character.
I'm chief administrator.
Chief administrator. Yeah. And
the counselor. We're psychologists, I would say, not psychiatrists.
Okay, it's my mistake.
No problem.
Yes, but you, in your role, taking care of wounded people, are tormented. And this is, it would seem to me.
Well, I have a bit of a problem with my dead mother.
Yes, yeah. Yes, who's in it as well. How many actors are in this play?
14.
14, and one of them, spoiler alert, is your dead mother. But I thought, and this is why I reached out to Warren, I thought it was so interesting that you were dealing with the problems of being the caretaker for people with emotional illness, and you wrote a whole television series in treatment about the problems of a caretaker of the emotionally ill.
One of the things I was very impressed by in performance and in writing was a lot of us have been in therapy, a lot of us know people who need to be in therapy, but it's very hard to get into the head of the psychiatrist as a writer, because that person usually sits across from you, and you don't know what that person is thinking or feeling by the design of the process. And I thought you did, both of you, an exceptional, and actually you as well. I understood the psychiatrist's or the psychologist's point of view very clearly, and I assumed you had spent time talking to these guys and knowing how they work.
Yeah, a little. I mean, and I've had my own experience, but on the other side,
yeah.
Of course. But the guy who ran the center and Dick O'Connor is his name, had written a book. And in the book, he spoke about his mother killing herself. Mm-hmm. And so, even though that wasn't part of the fundraiser when I did the thing, it was what always remained with me thinking when I would think about, I'm going to make it into a full, or what I would call a real play and explore the whole dynamic. That I knew I had a way into the inner life of...
there were also moments where your character was, and this is always, when I started to do in treatment, I asked psychiatrists, how soon into therapy do you know what the deal is with the patient? And they will all say, pretty fast. And the struggle is how to get the patient to understand what the deal is. Your character jumps to some quick conclusions in the second act about a patient and how much of what this patient is saying is real and how much is fantasy. I like that depiction very much. And the need to build a bridge to the patient is important, but then to have that distance.
Very much so. There's a character, a young man, that I deal with.
I envy everybody who has someone in their lives. I see people on the street walking together, and I hate them. Is that weird? Do you feel that way ever?
It doesn't matter how I feel, but how you feel, Alex.
Well, that's how I feel.
And then Ed and I actually talk about Dr. Michaels and myself, Evangeline, kind of commiserate, and I say, well, I think he's doing this, and Ed's character will say, well, do you think maybe this is going to happen? So you kind of get a little bit of how they're thinking, and then you see me in the next therapy session with him.
I love scenes between two therapists because they're... Can you talk a little bit about how you approach those?
Well, the one Amy just described, again, I was trying to develop a sense of their relationship sort of backstage, so to speak, and I wanted to hit on what I think is an issue, a current kind of issue with psychiatrists is how much of yourself you bring to it, make available. You know, you always bring yourself, I assume, but how much do you allow to actually experience, and how much do you chase away? And so I wanted to work that in there. And then when I wrote the scenes with the patients, I always just tried to leave a space for them, and I give them great credit in Scott's work with them, because I don't feel I did all that much from their end within the actual sessions, just other than allowing the correct space. And then in the end, there's a couple of scenes about their relationship.
So Scott Elliott, you're the director. What was Ed Harris taking this process?
Well, I think that what David means is that maybe on the page, those characters are not as developed as the patients who come to the center. You get a lot of Ed's background, you know, because his dead mother, as we have revealed, is in the play. So that's there to develop him. But Amy, her character is a mystery. Right. You get to know her a bit in the end. Yeah. You know, in the very last scene, which I think is one of the most clever things about the play, is that you have this woman, and Amy's portrayal, we talked, like Amy says, very much about, you know, active listening and what does that really mean, and how can you sort of, you know, how excited can a therapist get when a patient is having a breakthrough, or, you know, how much a therapist has to withhold in order to get what they want. But in the case of their dynamic, there's not that much stage time given to the two of them together. And I think that we've hit upon, well, of course, they're married, which is a lovely thing to have also, because they already have wonderful chemistry. And we've done, you know, we worked on 3 shows already together. And so their chemistry is always palpable from the stage. And I thought it would be fun to sort of exploit that in a way where they're playing co-workers, and not people who are married, but people who are linked very deeply by the people they love.
And by the intimacy of the work that therapists do. It's mentioned a couple of times in the play how remarkable what happens in a room with just 2 people can be. And you made someone, I don't know who, makes an interesting choice of having the other patients and even members of the audience on stage.
The whole time.
The whole time witnessing these normally very private, intimate moments. Where does that come from? Was it Amy's idea?
Yeah, I think I came up with that, but that was something that appealed. The minute I read the play, I thought that, well, first of all, I was struck. It seemed to me like a very sort of contemporary and slightly demented our town. I actually think the fact that a lot of the actors in the play are known from other places, it gives people a little bit of a more in to them. It makes people a little bit more open to the complexities of the play, because it's a very complex play.
Yes, we see back here many a known face.
That's right.
That's right. And people said to me, oh, and that person's in that, and that person,
yeah,
everybody's in it, someone said.
Well, I think that that was a conscious decision, because I thought that it would really make people sort of be able to sort of let other stuff go in order to be able to understand what the people are doing. And then I thought, well, wouldn't it be interesting to make just regular, everyday people part of the scenery, because that's the scenery of the center. And so by combining it, I thought, I mean, I don't know, I get off on sort of watching the waiting room scenes and seeing all those people sitting there. And, you know, for me, the imagery is potent.
Is that easier or harder to have your whole cast around you rather than you're left to the stage and have the people on stage?
I enjoy the fact that, first of all, most of my patients are there for most of the play, or our patients. And you feel that sense of responsibility to them because they're there, in a sense, you know, even if you're not dealing with anyone in particular. So I like it. I think it's good. I mean, the fact that the audience is in the back, you know, is also there, some of the audience. Is a little odd at times, but I'm getting used to it. And I thought my idea was that it should also be mannequins, you know, just like fake people. but
easier to handle.
Yeah.
One of my favorite parts of the play, though, when I watch it, is when everybody walks on at the same time. The audience and the actors sort of make the
Oh, at the beginning?
No, at the very beginning.
At the beginning, yes.
Like you're like, what's going on? Who's going? They're coming. Oh, wait a minute. There's so-and-so.
No, I think
you know,
it's a great idea, and it's
I
working.
love that part of it. Yeah.
One of your people is Rhea Perlman, who's, of course, known to everyone, and yet I thought she was just a real person walking in with the audience because she's not in makeup, and that's... It's an interesting combination of faces. And I did not notice F. Murray Abraham sitting back there, and he's in a bathrobe of all things.
Did you think someone was just in your robe?
They didn't quite pick up on him. And then there's a wonderful actor who's doesn't say a word until the second act.
That's right.
Malik Pancholi, yeah.
Fantastic. Now, David Rabe, I wanted to ask you, F. Murray Abraham plays a character who's 77 years old. And he's expressing, and I'm not outing your age.
Where are we going?
But he was expressing the issues of a man in his 70s, which I thought were very poignant and powerful.
My wife screamed. She screamed about something awful, something hideous on the rug, which was, of course, the spilled drink. It's just a spilled drink, I said. What spilled drink? She wanted to know. It was a natural enough question, but it seemed unnecessary. What did it matter what spilled drink? Considering everything going on in the world at that moment, what did it matter? I didn't answer.
Do you, as a playwright, use certain characters as a sounding board for your own feelings?
Yes. Yes, and he is one, along with Timothy. I feel a strong identification with Timothy.
Well, that character is on the spectrum.
You're not my friend. You're my therapist. And I want a girlfriend.
I would say. Yes, isn't that how we're going to put it?
Yes.
Yeah. Yes. I think.
And,
yes.
And also dealing with getting older.
This is a script that actors would very much want to do, but yet I see you have all these people. I can't imagine the pay scale is ginormous. And
how dare you, Susan? You know, we've been around now, the new group, a little over 20 years, and we like our artists, and we always want people to come back and work with us. And you know, we consider our group a little family, and you know, whenever we're casting something, we always look at, you know, people that are in our family, and then when we don't have somebody to fulfill it, we look outward and expand our family. And in the case of this play, it's sort of half and half.
Oh, it is?
You know, oh yeah, I've worked with a lot of people in this play before. Yeah, and then some are brand new. But I've worked with these two, and F. Murray and Malik, you know, a lot of the people, Laura Esterman, Kenny Melman.
Speaking of Kenny Melman, that's the piano player, among other things. Obviously, there's another Broadway play right now about music and depression, and I liked the use of music in this play enormously, and found it. I wondered how it got woven in, and what you've thought about music and depression and that sort of thing.
It has something to do with my mom's family and the way when I was kids they'd all get together and sing, and play all these instruments. And somewhere in the background, I know that's a big part of this, where it came from. It also comes from that, again, Richard O'Connor, the guy that wrote the book, he does have a group. They do go. He said, I don't. When I wrote this, he said, I've never thought about my patients doing it, but he does have a group that he goes to and sings. And when I learned that, because I had the play, he didn't have the music, and I thought, this is tough, this play, you know. And then I came up with that idea and integrated it. And then Scott is into the concept of the play in these set pieces, but then Scott has taken it to a whole other level with Kenny and Kenny's gorgeous score kind of that he does.
There's even a moment or two, I think, where several of the patients have rhythm instruments or
that's all Scott taking the idea to another whole level.
It's called being inspired by your work. That's what I did. I was inspired by it, and I love the idea of just music as therapy and art as therapy, and and Kenny, he's Herb of Kiki and Herb, and I worked with them a few years ago, and I thought that Kenny would be a really great person to sort of have on the stage all the time and be in charge of all of that.
He's your stage manager.
Sort of thing, in a way.
Yes.
Yeah, and in a way, and I thought that he, his sort of warmth, because he brings a lot of warmth to the proceedings, would really sort of, go another level to sort of warm the thing up, and. Yeah, and I just decided to use music as part of the thing. And also, I don't know if you probably didn't notice, but theater geeks like me think about this, but there's no technical sounds. All the sound is just on the stage. Everybody's making the sounds. It's all music based. There's no sound effects in the play. It's all organic and
diegetic.
In the thing, right, exactly.
So Ed Harris, my producer just reminded me that you played another Dead Mother play with Oedipus.
Yes. You were in a casket, however.
Oedipus Rex. Did you draw any correlations there?
Absolutely not.
Absolutely not. All right.
Well, what's lovely about this dead mother, she died when she was, we see her, she's a ghost that haunts
she committed suicide when I was 9.
9, and so she's a young, seemingly vital woman who is, in some ways in the play, trying to drag people to the dark side with her.
Basically, yeah.
Where does that come from?
I think that might be my answer. I just gave my answer.
Another hour.
Yeah.
All right.
Everybody, you want to know
everybody,
I think
everything.
that's a common experience. Not necessarily a mother, but the dark side is
spreading our mothers.
I'm kidding. My mother's still alive.
You're lucky.
Do we? Yes, I am. So, all right, well.
Mine was a little complicated.
If the play has very much to do with mothers and things like that.
Therapists in some ways are surrogate parents, right? They reparent you because things were missing growing up. And even though you're not drawn as a couple, do you feel that you're a couple on stage or in it together in this little,
Well, I feel we're in the work together. I don't feel that as characters we don't really know each other that well. And then we're both very private, solitary people,
We think we work. That's kind of like how these people are
work very hard.
But they love this center and they love these patients.
Not like we socialize a lot, characters.
Just the one great scene.
So I need to be alert, but be patient. Be and not be. Be what he needs, but not too much. That's a piece of cake.
I'm trying to white knuckle it myself.
Well, there's an aspect of your place we haven't brought up that Nancy Giles is the representative of the healthcare system, and you certainly are hitting a very profound point.
Well, I'm certain I would find that helpful if it wouldn't be too much trouble.
Oh, no, not at all.
Was that in the play from the start?
That scene was always there, one way or another. I developed it a little bit when I did a play in Chicago, and then much again with a really, I think, significant and good addition, working with Ed and Scott on this. But it's basically the same. Basically the kind of linguistic trap and kind of who's on first that they put you in.
It frighteningly reflects reality.
Everybody mentions that scene.
Yes.
I think everybody, all of us, everybody, all walks of life have that fear and those feelings about the healthcare system here.
This is just to be clear, this is the idea that you may be in desperate need of help and you have 8 sessions as a professional to bring somebody out of the worst crisis of their life, and then their health insurance covers no more of it.
Yeah, I know, or if you want to get them hospitalized for a brief period of time because they're at risk to themselves, maybe you can, maybe you can't, depending on whether the insurance company decides it's justified. And that's kind of the key event in this, and the other stuff is, kind of part of what's the general background of the situation.
Well, then as much as you care, you cannot buck that system.
Well, yeah, I mean, the Riley McDonald, who plays the young girl who's having some serious problems, and her foster mother that Rhea Perlman's playing, I have quite a few scenes with them, and it's very frustrating. Not just the scenes, but I mean the actual events in the story. You're powerless. I mean, whether it's protective services or the court system or, you know, the state restricting mental health funding. I mean, it's been 9 weeks since this, you know, thing has been established, but trying to get her away from her real mother and adopted by this foster mother, and it's incredibly frustrating.
Was it difficult to organize the scenes? Because you were dealing with how many different stories?
I think there are 37 different
something like
little, you know, quote unquote scenes in 2 acts.
Right.
Well, once I found the order stayed.
Yeah.
Because I felt an organic connection and in the sequence, that one scene, there was a way in which either theatrically the contrast of pace and rhythm of a scene or the subterranean elements would feed into the next one. Mm-hmm. And as I remember saying to Scott as we were approaching, getting close to running through with lights and everything, that you could start to feel that happening. And I mean, I think it does happen.
Had you written it pretty much in that order? Or
well, pretty much, yeah. Yes. But I had a lot of shuffling at one point, and I did when I took a very rough form of it. I did it in a little theater in Chicago, and I took a very rough form out there, and I did a lot of work there, and a lot of scenes that didn't exist before that were written there. So that was what I showed Scott, and what we then went to work with, what I ended up with.
Not only do the individual sessions progress with different patients, but there's I think a thematic progression.
Yeah.
Like a suicidality comes up
right.
with different patients.
And the maternal, the necessity and the beauty of that, mm-hmm. and the longing for that relationship.
Mm-hmm.
One of the great things I think that Scott managed to do was, it's such a big play, and there's so many characters. And we had a good amount of rehearsal, but a lot of that rehearsal was just how are we going to manage these 37 scenes and the transitions between them. So a lot of it was really, a lot of that rehearsal time was not as much as penetrating these characters and the scenes as it was trying to figure out how in fact this thing can work. You know, it was almost really, once we started actually being able to preview it and run it, that we started, Scott really started nailing, like, let's, you know, now it's time to penetrate this thing. And that's still what's going on, which is interesting, because usually the first part of rehearsal, that's what you're doing.
Yeah.
You know, but we kind of needed to be able to have it be on stage to begin with before we could even think about, like, you know, who are these, what's really going on with these people,
yeah.
you know? Right, isn't it?
It's true. It was one of those things where my brain had to work like that in order to sort of figure out, you know, how to make it happen. I mean, I knew that we would be able to fill in the blanks. I knew that that's something that I know how to do pretty well. And but the beastness of the whole thing was daunting, but exciting, daunting. You know, like I mean, it's something that for me, it was like having a big sundae. You know, it was delicious, and it was really fun to work with all
just
these people
even running it
out.
when we were still in the rehearsal room and we were going to leave the rehearsal room, which everyone was like, we're ready, but let's not.
Yeah.
And it was like, okay, we're going to run through the play, and even just in the room, everyone was kind of like, okay, we're going to do it. You know, it was a very exhilarating, participatory process.
And I think everybody kept thinking when I was going to start kicking their asses, and then I started doing that once we had, you know, the show up.
There's a difference in your therapeutic styles, I think.
Totally, that's what I love.
And I find that, how does that take shape? How do you,
I don't know, man.
It's good though, right?
Yeah,
I like that.
Describe the difference.
No, I was going to ask you how you describe. I mean, I have my ideas, but I'm not playing them. How do you think you approach your patients differently?
I don't know how to answer that.
Well, you know, I tell you, just personally, we're different people, and just the way we approach our work, the way we rehearse, the way we do our research, the way we prep. I mean, there's just different ways you approach things and you come into it. So I think that kind of helped us out. And within the play, you get to see me with my different patients a number of times, and hopefully there's a progression with some of them, and not everybody comes out great on the other side of it. So, and I really love listening in this play. I just absolutely have embraced it and cherish it, and I thank you both for that.
It's Good for Otto at the Pershing Square Signature Theater, a new group production. Thank you, Ed Harris, Amy Madigan, David Rabe, and Scott Elliott for being here at Theater Talk. And thank you, Warren Leight. It is always a pleasure to have you here.
Well, to be with these guys and
Yes,
with you is great.
Yes.
Do I have a circle? Somebody said it's friends. Is that right?
Well, yes, in a way.
Okay. What way? Because I want friends, not just the guys at the house, but friends everywhere, because then I can have some for old time's sake someday. You're not my friend. You're my therapist. And I want a girlfriend, because I want to get married. I don't think I will have children, though. My mom and dad like my brother's kids, but they are rude and messy. So no kids for me. That's what I think. What do you think?
Is that what you've decided?
After due consideration, that is what I decided.
Our thanks to the Friends of Theater Talk for their significant contribution to this production. Theater Talk is made possible in part by the Frederick Lowe Foundation, the CORY and Bob Donnelly Charitable Fund, the Noel Coward Foundation, Carrie J. Fries, the Dorothy STRELSIN Foundation, and the New York City Department of Cultural Affairs.
We welcome your questions or comments for Theater Talk. Thank you